Yes, folks, it's Tales from the Jails with John G. Sutton. I'm going to talk today about the problems of overcrowding in the prisons and the lack of staff. It was mentioned in my previous broadcast, and I got a response. Somebody wrote into the comments on the Prisons Are a Time Bomb, which was my last broadcast on here, on Tales from the Jails, and said that they'd recently been discharged from prison, and that whilst they were in there were times when they didn't get out of the cell for more than half an hour a day. In fact, the gentleman wrote that he'd spent 3 days in his cell without being allowed out. I mean, this is going to lead to riots. It's going to happen. I don't want to promote riots, but surely the Ministry of Justice can see that they cannot continue to cram inmates into prisons that are understaffed and overcrowded. But they don't seem to be listening. They've been imprisoning people for non-payment of fines. I agree that it is very difficult to enforce law if you don't have an ultimate deterrent, which is the prisons. But at the same time, in a civilized society, I believe that we've got a duty of care to the people that we are putting into incarceration. These people, who are these people? These people are you and me. They're our brothers, our sisters, our uncles, our aunts, our fathers, our grandparents, and we're sticking them into prison. And in that prison, they're in overcrowded conditions, with understaffed, not allowed out of the cells. I mean, the gentleman that posted on my previous broadcast said that on the wing he was at, all the staff had less than 10 months service in. The most senior officer on the wing had 10 months service. It's a very dangerous situation, because they don't know how to deal with it. And the problem, as I previously pointed out, is if it kicks off, and it kicks off, they ring the alarm bell. I mean, instead of getting a team of heavies, what you get is the Tiller girls dancing in. We can't have it. Something's got to be done. And I hope the Ministry of Justice is paying attention to this, because they are responsible. And the problem that we've got, of course, is that they cry, well, we've got Crown immunity. As we are representing the Crown, representing the country, we have absolute immunity from private prosecutions. And if you did try to prosecute them for neglect, and people die in prisons, and a lot of people die in prisons by their own hand. They commit suicide. And it's not possible to put people on suicide watch if you've got no staff, because it's very time consuming to keep a close watch on somebody who is intending to kill themselves. And they come up with some really strange ways of actually doing it. As I previously said on this channel here, my father was a detective inspector, had a man who said he was going to kill himself when he was in police custody. So they removed his clothing and gave him a blanket, a heavy-duty blanket that couldn't be ripped, and put him into an empty cell, which had nothing more than a toilet in the corner and bars at the window, and that was it. When my father went back to the cell, he had killed himself. What he'd done is jammed his head down the toilet and threw himself backwards so that his neck snapped. It's very difficult to prevent somebody from killing themselves if they are determined to do it. But it is beholden upon the people that place them in the situation that has caused this distress to actually observe them and enable them to live their life without injuring or terminating their existence. The problem is, of course, that the government don't seem to be paying too much attention. And, of course, as you probably do know, they've already reduced the Prison Officers Association, which is laughingly termed a trade union. It's about as much a trade union as my leg's a banana. Seriously. And they've reduced their rights to take industrial action. It's now a criminal offence for prison officers to take industrial action. And they've got jails where 75% of the staff are young women. They can't possibly cope. Listen, I've been in situations where big men struggle to cope because the inmates are kicking off. And as the prisons become more and more overcrowded, more antiquated, they're vermin infested with cockroaches, mice and rats. Old Victorian dumps, 200-year-old prisons. Look at Armley Jail. Look at Wormwood Scrubs, Strangeways, Walton. When I worked at Walton for a while, I found it was an extremely dirty prison with the inmates not helping at all. They lived in these conditions, but they just threw the trays that they'd use for the food onto the floor, where the food splattered all over the landings. It was getting walked into the landings. There were rats and all sorts there. It was a dirty prison. I don't know if it still is, but it certainly was in the early 70s. There are problems throughout the prison system, and it's not being addressed. And of course, you've got the issue with low pay. So who are they going to get applying for these jobs in the prisons? They're getting teenage females who couldn't get a job at Tesco's or Asda or Sainsbury's or wherever. They couldn't get a job there now. Failed the interview. I'll pass the interview for the prison service. Here's some keys and go and lock these men up. It's positively out of control. And I believe that there should be a class action against the Ministry of Justice for neglect of duty. People who have relatives who have suffered injuries in prison should collectively find themselves a lawyer and proceed and test the idea that the Ministry of Justice do not have a requirement in law to protect those that are within their care. In the meantime, I'd like to just show you my new book, which is, of course, here, HMP Manchester Prison Officer Part 2. Yeah, and that guy there, that was me in 1976. I was working at Wormwood Scrubs. The blurb on the back by Sean Atwood, who is the publisher, by the way, and a YouTube guy himself, true crime author, and he says it's shockingly, darkly hilarious and eye-opening. The treacherous attacks from Freemason prison officers were terrible. Yes, I was attacked numerous times and injured, ended up in hospital. But as you can see, I survived. And now for something completely different. Get your goat and go for it. Larry's trotting along around the moors. Watch it, Larry, it's going to rain today. It really is. This is a song I thought, seeing as we're on the verge of a civil war in Russia. War seems to be very popular these days. And Vladimir Putin's done a run to St. Petersburg. I don't blame him. If they get hold of him, they'll string him from a lamppost like they did to Mussolini. This is a song written by Pete Seeger. It's about soldiers dying, and it's called Where Have All the Flowers Gone? Oh, where have all the flowers gone? Long time passing. I murdered that, didn't I? Where have all the flowers gone? Long time ago. Where have all the flowers gone? Girls have picked them, every one. When will they ever learn? When will they ever learn? Where have all the soldiers gone? Long time passing. Where have all the soldiers gone? A long time ago. Where have all the soldiers gone? They've gone to graveyards, everyone. When will they ever learn? When will they ever learn? There was a brief rendition of Where Have All the Flowers Gone? Missing most verses, by the way. Anyway, thanks very much for watching Tales from the Jails. Don't forget to get my book, folks. It's on Amazon. We'll speak again.